All right, Kennedy, I'm glad you agreed to join me. I just want to make sure you're good with this thing being recorded.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I just want to go back over, we kind of changing up our form, our walkthrough form, and I did a walkthrough on your in your classroom the other day on Friday. So I just wanted to go over the form itself, kind of what I'm looking for, what I saw in your classroom. And maybe we can just have a little bit of a discussion about, where we're at and, things like that. So some of the things I'm going to look for, like, we broke it up into 4 different columns. One of the columns is teacher behavior. And that typically deals with, are you asking, upper level questions to the kids? How you're doing, just in the teaching framework. Also the classroom environment, which is another part where we're looking for, are the students, in their seats doing work? If they're collaborating, are they, collaborating the right way? Things like that. And then another column we're looking for is the student behavior. Are the students, directive behavior, non-directive behavior, like getting up and down and moving around in the classroom. So, and then the other one is about the lesson itself and, where you are with TEKS and the scope and sequence and actually what you're doing in the classroom, whether it's, like a warm-up module, mini lesson, stuff like that. So just so you kind of know where we're at with that and where we're going. So I know you've had the form, you have it right there, right? The actual form that we were using. But
Yes, sir.
so I just want to kind of, go back over that and talk about, where we're at. So I know in that lesson, the lesson you were doing was one about a pond or something where you had like ecology going on with the pond and, the lesson with, I guess, looking at that little life thing. It's kind of like a mini lesson, which was kind of pretty good. I liked it a lot. Some of the stuff, I probably wanted to kind of see a little bit more of was, I know when I got in there, you did a good job about talking to the TEK itself, but there wasn't any kind of TEK posted. And I think that's one of the things that we need to make sure that we're looking for, that we're getting the TEKs posted on the board somewhere. I know you talked about it kind of in loose terms about what, exactly what the kids were doing or what they were supposed to be looking for. But that just needs to be posted up on the board. And we need to actually specifically talk about it with the kids so they kind of know. And then I think one of the other things with the kids, we're talking about the classroom environment itself. Some of the other things was, one thing I did like is that you did have the word wall posted up on the wall there. That was pretty good. You had terms and a lot of visual aids for the kids. I think that works pretty well with the kids because I saw them, as you were talking and maybe when you went through that group process, the group project part of it where they started collaborating, that they were actually looking up on the board and looking for those terms on the wall. I thought that was well done on that part.
Thank you.
So the other thing that we're kind of looking at is, I noticed that, after you did your little mini lesson and the kids sat down, they started working independently. That was really good. They started, collaborating with each other and working well with each other. Some of that stuff, I think, maybe some of the stuff we could have done a little bit different was maybe having the tables readily set up to be able to, get into that collaboration mode a little bit quicker. But I think you did a nice job of, having the actual lesson plan laid out well, in the lab, the little mini lesson and the lab thing that they were doing together. I think that was laid out really well. Some of the, some of the non-directive behavior that I think we talked about earlier, where they just get up and just walk off and kind of, I didn't see a lot of it. I saw some of it, but it was really, stuff to get up and, go sharpen pencils and things like that. A couple of times you had some kids walk around to, the wrong tables or whatever and try to do some stuff, but for the most part, I think it's pretty well. I know it's early in the semester, so a lot of those groups and, kids, you might want to just kind of look at, regrouping some kids or, to maybe pull some kids around and change that up to get the kids to do better at that.
Okay.
If they did I did notice that while you were doing your mini lesson, that a lot of the kids were actually engaged in taking notes. I think some of it was, having that, project part laid out there already for them that they kind of were anticipating, getting into that. And I think that was kind of built some excitement for them. And then as you started, talking about the, going over the safety features of what you're having to do and doing some of that stuff with the kids and they were you can kind of feel them getting built up to, get after it. And I thought that was pretty cool. And they were taking notes and, they were kind of regulating themselves to do that. And I noticed that, some of the questions you did a good job of asking higher level questions and getting them to, engage, and you were forcing them basically to use the vocabulary words. And I thought that was really good. I think that pulled in the kids and they kind of understand what we're going with there. And then just looking through my notes here.
Mhm.
So. So I think a couple of things that they were engaging with the content. I think that was really nice because, when you actually did get to that lab part, stuff like that, it's really good to see some of the kids helping other kids answer questions. That was good. And coming, and you walking around, you did a good job of walking around the room and talking to the kids about, when they were doing their lab, I think walking around and helping them, engaging in that meaningful work. I think that was really good for them to, come up and do that stuff.
Mhm.
So just kind of looking back through it, you had I was making sure that, and like I went back and said about that tape thing, it's kind of hard to see, for the teacher to make sure that we're staying, in step with the district curriculum and what we're trying to do and stay with that alignment. It's kind of hard to see, because a lot of times it makes the job a lot easier for you and for the kids and for anyone that wants to come in and look on the board. They know exactly where you are.
Right.
And that could be like a 2-minute check. We go up and look and go, yep, she's at the right teak. And then we're doing that, staying with that, where we're at. So I think some of the other things that we were talking about is I know that at the end you had them write like a reflection on, the entire lab and kind of what it meant to them.
Mhm.
And kind of what you were looking for. And it wasn't just about getting the answers. It was also, maybe figuring out exactly how they felt about it, or maybe they had more questions or, they enjoyed the lesson and stuff like that. I think you did a good job of doing that and getting them pulled in with that. Let me look here. And then I want to talk for a second about like some kind of formative assessment, that you could do at the end of those lessons. And I know that the writing opportunity at the end was really good. And they had a chance to talk about it and express it and use those words. And, you kept banging on them to make sure they were using the right vocabulary and stuff like that, which is good. But in the end, sorry, you might want to look at maybe creating some kind of, exit ticket for them. And we talk a lot about that, but I think that's a good way. That's a best practice strategy to try to get, that lesson locked in as they leave the classroom. So they understand, it's not just about completing the task, right? Because
Mhm.
all this meaningful work with them. And at the end of the day, when they go to walk out, you want to make sure that they take something with them as they go and make sure that, and that way you have a way to maybe recalibrate your lesson if something didn't come right, or maybe
Mhm.
you have a formative assessment on it like that when they're walking out. Let's say, an exit ticket about the lab, it could even be something as simple as lab safety, right? And so if kids don't have, if you get all those, you collect all those tickets at the end and you go back and through all your classes, that you take all those notes back and you go and look and say, hey, this kind of missed the mark. The kids didn't get it. Or, maybe the kids did get it. And that just, reinforces, where you're at in the lesson and what needs to be done to, to help make that lesson a little bit more robust. You know what I'm saying? Again, just to kind of recap. So you did a very good job with, the classroom management as a whole, right? There's just, a few spots, but we already talked about that as far as, kids getting up and walking around, which wasn't a lot of that. But and like I said before, just, I know it's early in the semester and you'll still get to go back and kind of realign some of those, those groups and stuff like that to where you can, have, kids to help. I think the classroom management portion was really well. The lesson itself was good. I think it really engaged the kids as far as, getting them drawn into what you're trying to do. And I think when, you have that, mentioned in the lab up front, and you have all the stuff kind of set up for the kids, they already know what's, they're going to get to go do something cool. And so they were really drawn in and using that for, to get those kids drawn in was really good. I also like the fact that you used all the vocabulary and you're making the kids use the vocabulary to make sure that, they weren't just, completing the task and, some kind of random thing like, whatever, and checking boxes. I think you did a really good job of using, forcing that vocabulary on them, but at the same time, still maintaining the engagement portion, which is, really what we're looking for. Is the best practice because, if you get those kids in, it helps obviously with the management portion of the class, but also helps, drive those kids.
Right.
And I know that a couple of times you did a good job of asking those higher level questions, higher order questions for those kids and make them actually wasn't just a, what's the name of a tadpole or something. And they, they were actually able to, talk in vocabulary terms, stuff like that.
Right.
And they were able to, go analyze and then evaluate everything that they were doing.
Mhm.
I think that was good. Probably, and I guess the other thing is you allowed like some conversation for the kids to get together and discuss, items in the classroom. I think that was good, because you allowed them the freedom to actually have that conversation. And if they got stuck or, had a question, they came and talked to you. I think that was really good. Some of the things, to make sure that, we go back on and we don't forget some of those other things that, might seem small, but they're kind of a big deal, like putting the teaks on the board, I think was, going back and making sure that you're writing that teaks on the board. And, maybe having the room set up a little bit different, maybe not all the time, but when you're going to have those lab days, make sure that you have those tables set together in a way that, makes the kids be able to transition from the lesson itself into the collaborative groups that they were going to. Maybe even if you have to, rearrange your seating charts or something like that to get the kids in better positions to get there, or just when they come in from the start, just, already have the tables. I mean, what you're going to be doing that day. So I think that's a good practice to make sure that, that we're doing that. And so also on that, need to make sure that we have like a variety of those formative assessments. It doesn't always have to be an exit ticket per se, but it needs to be something where the kids are doing that. Other than that, I think you did a really good job.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed overall with everything that you did and where in the direction that they're going. So I think you did a really, really nice job.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions or?
No, sir, I do not. I took some notes and I will take that into consideration for my next class.
Deal. And the next time we do this, hopefully it won't be too long from now and we'll get back in it and we'll go from there. So good
Okay,
deal.
thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.